Measly Middle Ages. Hello there, I will be reading Measly Middle Ages to you. And do I sound a bit like Ixby? Yes, I do. Not anymore. And also, I'm not gonna be commenting, doing that boring, annoying, boring stuff. Dreadful disease. In 1347, Death strolled through Europe with his scythe, mowing some down and missing others. Swish, swish! In 1349, he sailed across the Channel to the British Isles. The terrified people never knew who was going to be next. As an Italian diary recorded, there appeared certain swellings in the groin and under the armpit. The victims spat out blood, and in 3 days they were dead. These swellings began to ooze with blood and pus. Purple, black blotches appeared on the skin, and you smelled absolutely revolting. Swell, spit, smell, swish. You were gone. Death's scythe was the bubonic plague, and the piles of bodies grew like chopped straw into a haystack. They were loaded onto carts, dropped into pits, or in Avignon in France, thrown in the river. Children were Death's particular favorites when it came to the swish. We now know the real reason for this. If you're an adult, then you have had quite a few diseases in your lifetime and build up a resistance. Children have had fewer diseases and far less resistance. They die easily. No, they don't. Of course, preachers said the children probably got what they deserved. One explained, "It may be that children suffer heaven's revenge because they miss going to the church or because they despise their fathers and mothers. God kills children with the plague, as you can see every day, because according to the old law, children who are rebels or disobedient to their parents are punished by death." You can see that not much has changed. Do what I say or die. Crazy cures. The trouble was that doctors didn't know what caused the plague, and they didn't know how to cure it. People mistakenly believed you could catch it by looking at a victim, breathing bad air, drinking from poisoned wells. In France, they said the English did the poisoning. In Spain, they blamed the Arabs. In Germany, suspected poisoners were nailed into barrels and thrown into the river, and everyone blamed lepers. And the cures were almost as dreadful as the disease. Doctors already had some wacky cures for illness. They said, wear a magpie's beak around the neck to cure toothache, cut a hole in the skull to let out the devil and cure madness. With something as deadly as the bubonic plague, they had no chance. They suggested, throw sweet-smelling herbs on a fire to clean the air. Shit in a sewer so the bad air of the plague is driven off by the worse air of the drains. Drink a medicine of 10-year-old treacle. Swallow powders of crushed emerald for the rich. Eat arsenic powder, highly poisonous. Try letting blood out of the patient. When the patient's horoscope was right, kill all the cats and dogs in the town. Sorry for moving my camera. Shave a live chicken's bottom and strap it to the plague sore. It's bad enough that I'm dying without looking stupid, too. March from town to town, flogging yourself with a whip. I don't know about curing the plague, but it's great exercise. Doctors check the urine of their patients. If there was blood in it, then there was no hope. Some people who caught the plague had a natural resistance to it, so they recovered. Others took the only cure that worked, run away from the plague infested towns into the countryside. The rich people with country houses could do this. The poor stayed at home and died. The real cause of the plague wasn't discovered till 100 years ago, and people still don't understand. They think rats carried the plague. Fleas carried the plague germs. They lived on rats and their germs killed the rat. A dead rat is not very tasty, as children who stayed school dinners will tell you, so the fleas looked for a new home. If there were no rats about, then the fleas would hop onto a human and spread the germs to that human. When their new human friend died, they'd hop onto another human. Maybe the person who'd nursed the first victim, and so it went on. I think I've got fleas, Dad. Scratch, scratch. All the plague around, and you're worried about a few fleas. Suffering Scots. The plague had its funny side. If you have that sort of sick sense of humor, the Scots hated the English and were delighted to see the plague destroying so many of their old enemy. They decided 1349 would be a good time to invade. The English would be too weak to defend themselves. As their forces gathered, the plague struck. Many Scots soldiers died. Many more ran home to their towns and villages, taking the plague with them. In the wars between England and Scotland, death didn't take sides. In Messina, on the Italian island of Sicily, people believe, Sicily, people believed that plague death appeared as a large black dog. It carried a sword in its paws and smashed the ornaments and altars in their churches. Many swore they had seen it. I always knew those dogs were up to no good. In Scandinavia, the people saw death as a pest maiden. She flew out of the mouths of the dead and drifted along in the form of a flame to infect the next house. Never give the kiss of life to a plague victim or you'd get singed lips. Fire! In Lithuania, a similar maiden waved a red scarf through the window to let in death. A brave man saw the waving scarf and sliced off the maiden's hand. He died, but the village was saved. The scarf was kept in the local church for many years. Of course, it could have belonged to some armless girl, couldn't it? That's him. He did it. Fantastic flagellants. Some people believed the best way to get rid of your wickedness was to beat the devil out of you. In Europe, groups of 200 to 300 people called flagellants went whipping themselves and each other for 33.3 days. The number of years Christ lived on earth. Apart from the steel-tipped whips, they had to put up with no shaving, no washing, no change of clothes, no comfortable bed, no talking to women. That's not so bad. At first, the flagellants blamed the priests for the evil of the plague. But the priests fought back with threats to ban the flagellants, so the measly flagellants decided to blame an easier target, the Jewish people in town. Yeah, they deserve that for just killing so many people. They rushed to the Jewish part of each town and murdered everyone they could find. In some places, like Worms in Germany, but also at that time they didn't deserve it, so no, they didn't deserve it. The Jewish people cheated the flagellants of their sport. They set fire to themselves and their houses in a mass suicide. 6,000 died in maids that year, and not one of the 3,000 Jewish people in Erfurt survived. Mystic medicine that would kill you. Of course, the Black Death was not the only illness that doctors had to deal with in the Middle Ages. Since ancient times, doctors believed that one of the best ways to get rid of sickness was to let the bad blood out of your body. People of the Middle Ages would pop down to the local barber shop and have a vein opened. If you wanted to save time, you could have your hair cut while you waited. Trim and a trickle, please. How could you spot the local barber shop? There was usually a bowl of fresh blood in the window. In London, this was considering bleeding bad taste and banned in 1307. Apart from bleeding, there were other interesting cures in the Middle Ages. But can you match the right cure to the right illness? Try this test. It doesn't matter if you get them all wrong, actually. None of them works anyway. So, ringworm, gout, plague, skin disease, loss of memory, sleeplessness, bruises. How about we actually just skip this? I'll just tell you all the things. Bruises, fainting, blocked up nose, bleeding inside the body. So you broke a vein. 1F. Washing in a boy's pee might kill you, so or certainly give your ringworm a nasty shock. Don't try this at home. Warning. Don't try to eat the honey after you finished with it. Oh, it's like honey and a bunch of stuff to make something disgusting. Plague doctors sold powdered pearls or powdered emeralds to very rich parents. This was very healthy for the doctor's wallet. In the mid-14th century, a vicar was caught importing 4 dead and smelly wolves' bodies in a barrel. The idea was that the disease would feed on the wolf's skin and head instead of the human sufferer. Surgeons were furious that a vicar was pinching their job. Eating ginger for loss of memory is quite harmless. I tried it once. It may have even worked, but I can't remember. Oh my God. Treacle was the great cure of the 15th century. It cured practically everything, including loss of speech, spotty skin, and snake bites. It was a real star among medicines, hence the song, Treacle, treacle, little star, how I wonder what you are. 7D. 7 dimensions, that's a lot. Bacon fat should be mixed with wild boar's grease if you can get it. The trouble is, you'd probably get more bruises fighting the boar. Then you'd have to go out and catch another wild boar. And so on. No, an angry teacher should not be killed for his or her grease. They are wild boars, not boars. And I mean B-O-R-E-S. So they bore you to death. Make sure the feathers are not still attached to the chicken when you set fire to them. The RSPCA takes a very dim view of this. It's not a very nice cure, this one. If you're embarrassed by the toad hanging around your neck, tell your friend it's the latest fashion. Alternatively, you may prefer to bleed to death. No comma. Top tip for teachers. The best way to avoid a hangover is to drink with your hat off. Doctors of the Middle Ages said this allows the harmful fumes to pass out of your head. A hat holds them in and gives you a headache. But if the drink affects your kidneys, and here's a beetle brew discovered by John of Gaddisden. I cut off the heads and wings of a cricket and put them with beetles and oil in a pot. I covered it and left it a day and a night in a bread oven. I drew out the pot and heated it at a moderate fire. I ground it all together and rubbed the sick parts. In 3 days, the pain disappeared. Health warning. Make sure you use crickets or little grasshoppers, and not cricketers in this cure. Try cutting a cricketer's head off and you may get it bad in your measly mouth. Arab medicine. Oh yeah. Arab doctors were far in advance of European doctors. Their cures showed more understanding of disease and their treatments were more gentle and usually more successful. They could scarcely believe the way doctors behaved in Europe. Usama ibn Muniqid told the story of an Arab doctor. He was treating a knight who had an abscess on his leg. He put a dressing on it. For a woman with lung disease, he prescribed the right sort of fresh food. Along came a European doctor. You have no idea how to cure these people, he said. First he took an axe and cut the knight's leg off. The knight died. Then he cut a hole in the woman's skull, removed her brain, and rubbed it with salt. The woman died. Oh, not woman's salt, woman's skull. I hope you have learned something about medicine today, the European doctor said. I certainly have, the Arab doctor replied. A word of advice, my friend. Never get sick in England. And also, if he was an Arab Muslim, he would not have said that. And I mean a good Muslim, not a bad one. Australians are proud of their flying doctors, a medical service in airplanes. But the Middle Ages saw Dr. Damien of Stirling in Scotland become the first doctor to take to the air. Dr. Damien was a hopeless doctor and killed as many as he cured. Measly brained King James the Fourth gave him lots of money to turn ordinary metals into gold. But he failed. Then in 1504 he tried flying. A writer of the time said, Damien took it in hand to fly with wings, so he made a pair of wings from feathers. These being fastened around him, he flew from the walls of Stirling Castle, but soon fell to the ground and broke 3 bones. He blamed the failure on the fact that they were chicken feathers in the wings. He said, chickens belong on a dung heap and not in the air. Luckily, King James was a pretty good doctor himself and could patch up Damien. The first flying doctor was no chicken, which is more than can be said for his wings. I know I may have said a few just things, but seriously, they needed to be said. Okay, bye. I'm gonna make another video today.